Irish. John and Arlene Crawford, my great-grandparents, both yearned to preserve their Celtic family roots. Arlene diligently gathered family stories and oral traditions, mostly from relatives, and wrote them in an old book that she kept beside her Bible. The neighbours ordered copies that she wrote by hand and sold for oats or wool. She also made a copy of the book for the Reverend, one for each of her children and one for each of her siblings. The more recent copies had more stories. When new people would read her collection, they would often return, bringing her extra details for her to add to subsequent editions. In her ornate wooden-covered Bible, which she received from her grandfather, she kept the family genealogical records. That old large family Bible was given to her daughter Helen, my grandmother, who still had it when I was a child. It was she who added my name, William Wallace Shepherd, listing me as the 28th generation grandson since Sir William Wallace. I was raised to honour my heritage of being a descendant of the hardy warrior. The family stories paint an extremely different picture of my ancient great-grandfather, Sir William Wallace, than what was depicted by Braveheart. Although I found the movie inspiring, as well as entertaining, and found the battle scenes to be somewhat similar to how they were explained to me, I noticed striking inaccuracies, assuming that our own family records were right. I also could not help wish that in all of Scotland they'd found a single Scot to play the leading part. I have nothing against having Yanks play minor roles, and have considerable esteem for Mel Gibson, love him in many of his shows, but he did not look like, dress like, or sound like the William Wallace that I know. Essentially, Mel Gibson did not capture William Wallace's spiritual nature. It was not written into that very militantly oriented script. I don't blame Gibson for any of these points. I just want to tell everyone about the historical William Wallace because I was honoured to be his namesake. After all, now at last that I'm telling you about the real me, it's also an opportune time to tell you about the real goodness of William Wallace. He was much more than a hardy warrior. Ellerslie in Ayrshire is where it says he was born to Margaret Crawford and Alan Wallace on a warm night, Tuesday the 5th of August 1270. Sir William died on a Sunday, the 23rd of August 1305. A faithful lad, in his early years he learned to trust the Lord to strengthen him, to deliver him from evil, and to help him do the right thing, whatever that may be. This early training came from his parents and from the church where, along with an education, he was taught love and respect for all of God's children. That love included the need to instill self-respect and self-rule. To him, the teachings of Jesus demanded full equality and individual rights. Through Bible study, he became entrenched in principles of liberty. He would go on to overcome all tyranny and all oppression. He felt that securing liberty was his Christian mission. No one could rightly expect anything less. All of this history, however accurate, is from that family book. Sir William's father was a God-fearing patriot who taught William that no Scot should acknowledge foreign jurisdiction over their God-given land. To him, it was as much anathema as the Jews honouring Roman governance over Israel in Jesus' day. Alan Wallace would sooner be a zealot than a supporter of England's rule over Scotland. He openly refused to swear allegiance to King Edward or to any other monarch of foreign land, as was required by British law of all Scottish landowners. Scottish pride and Alan's patriotic, freedom-loving rebelliousness drove Alan Wallace deep into seclusion with his oldest son. They travelled all about as fugitives from onerous, tyrannous English rule, while William remained at home with his mother and younger brother, stewing in the injustice without clear remedies. This conflict formed his educational context. When they heard rumours of insurrections against England, William's liberty training intensified until in 1291, in a battle at Loudon Hill, William's father and uncle were killed. The impressionable teenager turned from long-held hatred of English oppression to a new hatred of the English themselves. He hated their insistence on ruling a foreign people. It had gone too far. Forcing Scots by the sword to swear allegiance to a power they hated was slavery. He would die a free man. He hated them for killing the man he most respected, his God-fearing father, whose crime was not submitting to oppression. William vowed in his heart that he too would never submit to English rule. Still, while he was all torn up inside over the great loss he was feeling and over the political condition they were in, his life went on. His loss and his new resolve for freedom increased his devotion to God. He would live his life in such a way that he could always expect God to help him. He placed himself in the Almighty's hands. William turned to the Psalms for direction, courage, and peace. To him, the wicked spoken of were as the English oppressors. To know what enmeshed William Wallace's mind from his teen years until the end of his life, try reading Psalms, inserting the word English for wicked or heathen. Your understanding of the man will take on an extraordinarily new depth. I'll put some examples in here, but to get the full impact, have a day of it, reading nothing else. It'll blow your mind. I'll make adjustments in the text as I go to show you how William Wallace read it. You can check your own Bibles to discover what is new in my William Wallace rendition. I will do the first 2 Psalms for you. By that pattern, you will know how it went on from there. Blessed is William, who walks not in the laws of the English, but his delight is in the law of the Lord. He shall be like a tree that brings forth his fruit, and whatsoever he does shall prosper. The English are not so, but are like the meaningless chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the English shall not stand. William yelled lines like, "Why do the English rage and imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves against the Lord. He that sits in the heavens shall laugh. He will have the English in derision. Then will he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. The Lord hath said unto me, Ask of me, and I shall give you this land occupied by the English for thine inheritance, and these parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Be wise now, O ye kings. Kiss this son of Scotland, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way when his wrath is kindled." I just showed you how he read the first 2 Psalms. He would read all of the Psalms like that, regardless of what the psalmist had in mind. If you continue with the other 148 of them, you'll wonder how so much could fit his life so perfectly. You will see what he saw. You will know what internal force moved him to act with such mighty willpower. He always carried a psalter and read it out loud frequently for others to hear it, and also quietly at more reflective moments. It was his strength. Losing or winning, in sorrow or in joy, it all had the same effect, bringing him back to the book for inspiration. He turned to it in bright gratitude and in dark desperation, in loud sermonizing and in quiet amazement, in his proud boasting and in humble supplication. It was his life. Even while being murdered, executed, his personal psalter, which had never left his side, was opened for him to read. William Wallace regularly motivated his followers with sermons that relied on Psalms and on the rest of the Scriptures, a great many of which he had memorized, sometimes imperfectly. Lengthy sermons streamed from him as easily as natural conversation. It's what it all was to him. Love was one of his themes that drove people to fight, which sounds odd, but it's true. They would all rely on the God of love to defend the liberties they loved, the land they loved, the women and children they loved, and all that was good that they loved. Because of the principles of love, everyone should be free to govern themselves. If the English loved them, they would be free to share in brotherhood, not servitude. Love, love, love. William Wallace, the real man, was not the hard-hearted, evil-minded, murderous man depicted by Hollywood. He focused his willpower, action, and energy to establish equality, exerting his will to act in line with his beliefs, which is more heroic than most people. He lived by the good book. William had sought the priesthood, but did not have the birthright. Instead, he studied scriptures for his own benefit, which richly spilled into all else, enhancing his leadership roles. He was as competent to doctrinally expound, exhort, or edify as any of the religious leaders of his time. He knew Gaelic and Latin, as well as the most scholarly priests. William did pilgrimages, was a father to the fatherless, the whole bit. He was a priest's priest, but not by any institutional ordination. Love ruled his heart. He cared for the poor and needy, the weary and exhausted, the sick and infirm. He never missed private prayer or public worship. A close associate, John Blair, was a renowned Benedictine monk. These lifetime friends discussed religion, theology, philosophy, poetry, government, history, and current world affairs. Both men were naturally inclined to seek all manner of learning and virtue. Both gentlemen were creative and brilliantly educated, as much so as any monks of their day. They shared core values and desires, both finding delight in uplifting all whom they met in their frequent travels. The William Wallace of Braveheart was a likeable fellow, but he did not possess the distinct holiness that so strikingly radiated from the real man. In unabashed defiance against the King of England, the Archbishop of Canterbury gave William Wallace his last rites before his execution. The sanctity of the condemned man was much too certain to leave his request unfulfilled, even though it risked dire consequences from King Edward. William's brutal execution, which was done in a terribly horrific manner at Smithfield's Elms in London, followed his capture and extradition to London, made possible by betraying Judas. A mock trial found him guilty and ordered him executed for treason. A few years ago, I honoured Sir William Wallace on the septennial 700-year anniversary of this ignominious death. The small gathering occurred, for those who would appreciate it, on the 23rd of August 2005. I hope others remembered my ancestor too. Several people claim to be direct descendants of Sir William Wallace. That is entirely possible, since it has been so long since his death. He would have a great posterity by now. However, I do not see any reason to believe that those who have the Wallace surname have any special claim on him, since William had no sons to carry on that name. Chief Shears Wallace of the Glasgow Wallace clan has my respect for preserving the Scottish culture, but has nothing on my Sir W. pedigree or on me. I am a direct descendant of William Wallace. It does not get more direct than that. If the chief's line picked up the Wallace name generations later, then he too may be a direct descendant.